What would you do if you came home from work to find your house surrounded by police cars, an ambulance in your driveway, and a stranger's car burning on your front lawn? Now imagine the police looking at you, not your neighbors, not a passerby, you like you might be the one responsible. And the only person who could explain what really happened is your own wife, the woman you've shared a bed with for 12 years. And she's lying to your face. This is that story. And I promise you the twist at the end is not what you think. My name is James. I'm 41 years old. I work as a shift supervisor at a logistics warehouse, and for 14 years my commute home has followed the exact same rhythm. Radio on, mind shifting from work mode to home mode somewhere around 6:47 p.m., shoulders dropping as I turned onto our street. It was the most predictable part of my day, the most ordinary part of my life. That Tuesday it wasn't ordinary at all. I turned onto Maple Street and the first thing I saw was red and blue light bouncing off my neighbors' lawns. Police cars lined the curb. An ambulance sat with its back doors open, paramedics working fast around a stretcher. And in the middle of all of it, yellow tape fluttering around my own front yard like some kind of horror movie prop, was my house. On the curb, where visitors usually parked, a luxury car was fully engulfed in flames. Black smoke rolling into the evening sky. Firefighters hosing it down. I pulled into my driveway and just sat there for a second, hands still on the wheel, brain refusing to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. This had to be some mix-up. Some accident with the neighbors that had somehow spilled onto our lawn. My wife Claire was probably inside watching through the window just as confused as I was. An officer stepped toward me as I got out of the car. "Sir, you need to stay back." I pulled out my license. "This is my house. Jason Miller. I live here. What happened? Is my wife okay?" He looked at my ID longer than seemed necessary. Compared my face to the photo. Twice. "She's inside, sir. Detective Morrison will want to speak with you." He led me past the tape, and as we walked, I caught a glimpse of the paramedics loading someone into the ambulance. A man. Face bloodied, unconscious, wearing what was left of an expensive suit. I had never seen him before in my life. A tired-looking woman in her 40s approached Detective Morrison. Sharp eyes. The kind that catalog everything about you in about 3 seconds. "Do you know this individual, Mr. Miller?" "No. Never seen him." "Who is he? What happened here?" She didn't answer that directly. "Where have you been this evening, sir?" And that's when it hit me. The surreal sinking feeling of being asked to account for yourself for a crime you don't even understand yet. Work. Riverside Logistics. I left at 6:30. Same as always. There's cameras, time cards, 8 guys on my crew who can verify it. She wrote something down without looking up. Then, "Your wife says this man was a friend who stopped by unexpectedly. She says someone attacked him in your driveway and set his car on fire. Any idea who might want to do that? Anyone with a grudge against you?" And there it was. They thought I had done this. Perhaps that was the moment everything started to crack open. Though I wouldn't understand how deep the cracks went until hours later. "Detective, I've been at a warehouse since 2 o'clock this afternoon. I supervise 8 people. There's probably 20 witnesses and security footage that puts me on the floor the entire time this happened." "We'll verify that," she said. Then, after a pause, her expression softened slightly. "Your wife's pretty shaken up. Says she's never seen anything like this." I followed her inside. Our living room, Claire's careful, curated living room, the one she rearranged every season, had been turned into a makeshift interview station. Notebooks, recording equipment, all spread across her antique coffee table. The air smelled like smoke. Claire was on the couch, wrapped in a police blanket, mascara streaked down her face, hands trembling around a coffee cup. When she saw me, she burst into fresh tears. "Jason. Oh my God, it was so horrible." I sat down beside her, reaching out, but something in the way she held herself made me stop. She was shaking, yes, but underneath the fear, there was something else in her face. Something that looked almost like guilt. "What happened, honey? Who was that man?" "I don't know. I mean, he's just a friend. Someone from the gym. David something. He stopped by to ask if we wanted to join his book club." A book club? Claire hadn't finished a book in the entire 12 years I'd known her. Detective Morrison was watching us both carefully. The way Claire avoided my eyes, The way her words came out just a little too fast, a little too rehearsed. I could feel the weight of suspicion settling over the whole room. And honestly, I couldn't even blame them. If I were investigating this, I'd be looking hard at the husband too. The fire department has the car under control, Morrison said, gathering her things. We'll need to keep the scene cordoned off overnight. Mr. Miller, you're free to go inside your own home. But you remain a person of interest in this investigation. Person of interest. That phrase rattled around in my skull as the last police car pulled away. Ambulance lights fading down the street. Firefighters hosing down the smoldering wreck that used to be a $60,000 car. I was free to walk into my own house. But I already knew, standing there in the driveway, that nothing about that house was going to feel the same again. The front door closed behind the last officer at 11:30 p.m. And for the first time since the chaos started, it was just Claire and me. And the elephant in the room that was growing bigger by the second. Claire had taken off the police blanket and was pacing between the kitchen and the living room, wringing her hands, muttering things to herself. I can't believe this happened. Poor David. Who would do something like this? David. She'd said his name 3 times now. Each time with a familiarity that didn't match. Someone from the gym, I barely know. Sit down, Claire, I said. My voice came out calmer than I felt. The same flat, even tone I use at work when I have to deal with a problem employee. We need to talk. She sat on the edge of our leather armchair. The one that faces away from the couch. The first time in 12 years I could remember her choosing not to sit next to me when we were alone. Tell me about David, I said. Last name. The question just hung there. Her mouth opened and closed, eyes darting toward the window where the burnt skeleton of the car was still visible under the streetlight. Davidson. David Davidson. What gym, Claire? You've belonged to Fitness Plus for 3 years. I've picked you up there dozens of times. Which trainer is David? What classes does he teach? Her face started to crumble. The composure she'd held together for the police for hours just dissolved. He's not a trainer. He's just a member who? Claire. I leaned forward, keeping my voice level. I've seen the credit card statements. You haven't been to that gym in 6 months. The silence that followed was the loudest silence I have ever experienced. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked once and went quiet. The refrigerator hummed. Claire's breathing turned shallow and quick, like she was about to have a panic attack. Jason, I can explain. Can you? Because I've been trying to make sense of tonight for hours and nothing adds up. A stranger shows up at our house. He gets attacked in our driveway. His car gets torched. The police think I did it. And my wife claims she barely knows the victim. It all came out of her in a rush, high-pitched, desperate. I don't know who hurt him. I was inside. I heard shouting, glass breaking. And when I looked out the window, David was on the ground and his car was on fire. I called 911 right away. What was he doing here, Claire? She wrapped her arms around herself, rocking slightly. He wanted to talk. About personal things. And there it was. The truth sitting in all the spaces between her words. In the way she couldn't meet my eyes. In the guilty slump of her shoulders. My wife. The woman who knew exactly how I take my coffee and which side of the sink I shave on. She had been a stranger living in my house. How long? I asked. Jason, please. How long have you been sleeping with him? Her face just broke. Tears came pouring out. The kind that finally arrive when there's nothing left to hide behind. 6 months. But it didn't mean anything, I swear. I was lonely and you work so much and he made me feel. Get out, I said. Quiet. Controlled. Go pack what you need for tonight. You're in the guest room. Jason, we can fix this. I made a mistake, but I love you, I choose you. David was what, Claire? A mistake that took 6 months of lying to my face? A mistake that brought the police to my door and made me a suspect in a violent crime. She grabbed my sleeve, pleading. And looking down at her hand on my arm, the same hand that had been touching another man in our home, the same hand wearing a wedding ring with a slight indentation underneath that didn't quite match the tan line. I felt something settle inside me. Cold. Permanent. Clean, like stepping into winter air. I'm calling Patricia in the morning, I said. Her face went pale. Patricia Hendress had drafted our prenuptial agreement 12 years ago, back when Claire had been so eager to marry me, She'd signed it without a second thought. I'm enforcing every clause, I said. Infidelity means forfeiture of spousal support, division of assets, everything. You signed it, Claire. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. She stood there swaying for a long moment like she might collapse. Then, without another word, she walked upstairs. I heard drawers opening, a suitcase being packed. 20 minutes later she came back down with an overnight bag and a pillow, paused at the guest room door, and looked back at me with red, swollen eyes. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen, I said. And now we both have to live with it. The door clicked shut. Through the wall I could hear her crying deep, wrenching sobs. I went up to our bedroom, where her perfume still lingered on the sheets, and for the first time in years, I had the entire bed to myself. I lay there thinking about logistics, divorce papers, asset protection, the security footage at work that would clear my name with the police. Down the hall, Claire's crying slowly faded into hiccuping silence. I slept better that night than I had in months. Patricia Hendriss's office was the kind that intimidates people into honesty just by existing. Floor-to-ceiling law books, diplomas from prestigious universities, a view of downtown that screamed success. She'd been practicing family law for 25 years, and her prenups were legendary in our circle for being absolutely airtight. She pulled my file and flipped through it. I remember this one. Claire's attorney tried to talk her out of signing this 3 separate times. She signed it anyway, I said. And now I need to enforce it. She read the adultery clause out loud, section 4. Infidelity meant forfeiture of spousal support, marital property division, everything acquired during the marriage. She looked up over her reading glasses. You have proof. I slid a flash drive across the desk. Police report from Tuesday night. Claire's own statement, admitting to a 6-month relationship with the victim. Credit card records, hotel charges, dinners, gifts I never got. She reviewed everything carefully, making notes. This is textbook, she said finally. But Jason, I have to ask. Do you know anything about what happened to this man? I was at work from 2 to 6:30. Security footage, time cards, 8 witnesses. Police already cleared me. Good. Because if there's even a hint you were involved in what happened to him, it could complicate everything. She studied me for a moment. Are you sure about this? No attempts at reconciliation. I almost laughed. She's been lying to my face for 6 months. Brought another man into our home. Got me investigated for assault. What exactly would I be reconciling with? Fair enough, Patricia said. I'll file this afternoon. Under the prenup, Claire has 7 days to vacate the house and 30 to find her own representation. She keeps her car, her clothes, her personal items. That's it. House, investments, retirement accounts, all stay with you. How long until it's final? 6 to 8 weeks. Given the strength of this agreement and the evidence, any decent lawyer is going to tell her to take the deal. I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in years. Claire was waiting when I got home. Hair done, makeup on, wearing the blue dress I once told her was my favorite. The desperate attempt at normalcy was almost painful to watch. I made reservations at Romano's for 7:30, she said. I thought we could talk. Really talk. Cancel them, I said, setting down my briefcase. Jason, please, I know you're angry, but we can work through this. I already called a counselor. She has an opening next week. Claire. Stop. I took a breath. You need to call a lawyer. Today. Her face went white. What are you talking about? I filed for divorce this morning. Papers get served tomorrow. The coffee cup slipped out of her hands and shattered on the tile. Hot liquid splashed across the floor, and she just stared at it, like she couldn't understand how it had happened. You can't be serious. I made one mistake. You made the same mistake every single day for 6 months. The tears came again, but these weren't the same tears from before. These were angry, desperate. Fine. Divorce me. But you can't just throw me out with nothing. I gave you 12 years. You gave me 12 years of lying. And according to the prenup you signed, infidelity means you get nothing. And just like that, the transformation was instant. The tears stopped. Her whole face changed. For one moment I saw exactly who she was underneath all of it. You planned this. I planned for the possibility that you'd turn out to be exactly who you are, I said. I'll fight this. No judge enforces a prenup like that. Good luck explaining that to Patricia Hendress, I said. The name landed exactly the way I knew it would. Everyone in our circle knew what it meant when Patricia was your attorney. I need time to think, she said, backing toward the stairs. Then she stopped, gripping the banister. What about the police investigation? What if they come back for you? They won't. My alibi's solid. But Claire, I didn't hurt your boyfriend. And I'm not going to let his problems become mine for one more day than they already have. She went upstairs without another word. The next 2 weeks felt like watching a slow-motion unraveling. Except it wasn't my life unraveling anymore. Detective Morrison called me in one more time, mostly as a formality. Your alibi checks out completely, she said, closing the file. We're no longer considering you a person of interest. Then, almost as an afterthought, between us, Mr. Miller, crimes like this are usually personal disputes, not random violence. And given that Mr. Davidson was visiting your wife specifically, she let that hang there. You think this is about Claire, I said. I think your wife hasn't been entirely honest about a lot of things. But that's not really your problem anymore, is it? She was right. It wasn't. I never found out, not for certain, who actually attacked David Davidson that night. The case stayed open for a while, technically. There was a rumor that floated around our social circle for months afterward, that David had a habit of seeing married women, and that this wasn't the first angry spouse he'd run into. Someone mentioned an ex-boyfriend of his, someone with a temper and a grudge that had nothing to do with me or Claire at all. Whatever the truth was, it belonged to a part of David's life I'd never been part of, and honestly I stopped thinking about it. It wasn't my mystery to solve. My only job had been to prove I had nothing to do with it, and I had. What I did know was this. By the time the dust settled, David had ended things with Claire almost immediately after getting out of the hospital. Whatever appeal a married woman with a complicated home life had once held for him, it apparently didn't survive a few weeks of recovery and police questioning. Claire moved in with her parents. At 34, starting completely over, with no financial cushion and a reputation that had taken a serious hit once people in our circle learned the full story. Some friends felt for her. Most didn't. People take infidelity seriously, especially when there's a prenup on the table and a 6-month timeline of receipts to prove it. The divorce was finalized 8 weeks later. House, investments, retirement, all of it stayed with me, exactly as we'd agreed 12 years earlier. Back when she'd been so eager to marry me she hadn't read past the signature line. 2 weeks after it was finalized, I stood in my kitchen making coffee for one, watching the morning news. Outside it was the kind of bright, ordinary day that makes you forget anything bad ever happened on a street like mine. My buddy Mike picked me up at 9 for golf. You seem different, he said as we walked to the first tee. Lighter. 12 years of dead weight will do that to a man, I said. Any regrets? I thought about it as I lined up my shot. About the divorce? None. About waiting this long to do it? Plenty. The ball sailed straight down the fairway, landing exactly where I'd aimed. Everything in my life felt like that now. Precise. Intentional. Mine. That evening I made myself dinner. Steak cooked exactly the way I liked it. Wine from a bottle Claire had always said was too expensive for a weeknight. I ate slowly, in a silence that didn't feel empty anymore. Felt like mine. My phone buzzed. Claire's number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was 3 minutes of crying and pleading. Another chance, she changed, please reconsider. I deleted it without listening to the end. That night I went up to my bedroom, not our bedroom, just mine now, and lay down in the center of that big bed. No crying down the hall. No passive-aggressive silences. No pretending to be asleep so I wouldn't have to talk about our relationship. Just quiet. I thought about the road ahead, travel, hobbies, maybe someday meeting someone who actually understood what loyalty meant. The future felt wide open in a way it hadn't in years. The investigation was closed. The divorce was final. My name was clear, my assets were protected, and for the first time in a long time, I fell asleep without a single thing weighing on me. And that's the story. A house surrounded by police. A wife with a secret that had been hiding in plain sight for 6 months. A prenup that turned out to be worth every dollar I'd once complained about paying a lawyer to draft. If there's one thing this taught me, it's this: protect yourself before you need to, not after. Because you never really know someone until the worst night of your life forces the truth out into the open. What would you have done if you came home to find your house wrapped in police tape and your spouse lying to your face? Tell me in the comments, I'd love to hear it. And if this story kept you hooked, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There's a new one waiting for you tomorrow.